All right. And here we are once again. Today is Saturday. And of course, happy new month to all of you, all our viewers. This is the Gracious Hope Live podcast. And our platform is all about promoting and preserving the Liberian Christian heritage. Hello, once again. I'm Pastor Alexander Ray, the host. And of course, the co host, Reverend Suah S. Deddeh, is also here. And today we will provide an analysis of the orator of July 26 this year. We heard a debate about the speaker or the orator of that Independence Day, Dr. Robtel Neajai Pailey, who spoke uh, in a way that aroused those who were in attendance as well as Liberians abroad. um, and this whole debate is all about her speech. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we have to talk about today in that speech regarding our dignity as Liberians and how we can factor that into our nation building and state building. She gave us a triad of what it means to be a citizen, a passive citizen, and also active citizen, and how we can do everything in our own powers as Liberians in national reconciliation and also unity to make sure that we get rid of corruption. Corruption is not all about pointing fingers at the politicians, but what about ourselves? And she asked a very poignant question that we need to re examine our relationships with the international community, particularly the United States of America, our partner. And some people see the United States as a country that we depend on for all our resources. However, she wants us to re examine our relationship or special relationship with the United States. And of course, that line in her speech caused stares among pundits and even ordinary Liberians who listen, but they did not examine or evaluate the entire speech to understand the theme of her speech. And from our own perspective, we will look at the entire speech, dissect the speech, and give you the whole idea and the nuances of her speech. And we believe that elevating Liberia's dignity and character, not in the eyes of only the international community, but in the eyes of ourselves and other Africans. And we can look at other African countries who received their independence of late in the 50s and 60s, now blossoming or flourishing in every way. And that's where we'll be taking a look here at her speech and seeing what does it mean to elevate or to step up our own dignity as a country so that we can move forward in reconciliation, reconstruction, peace, and stability. And so today, please join us, share this link or share this video. This is a live broadcast. You can share it with your friends, your families, and your loved ones, as well as you can also download it yourself for future reference. And so comment, share, and follow our page. And Reverend Suah S. Deddeh is here to help analyze the entire speech that Dr. Pailey delivered on July 26, 2024. Once again, we'd like to say welcome. Reverend Deddeh, so we are back here on our podcast, and hopefully we can weave through Dr. Pailey's speech that sparked debate in the Liberian community abroad and back home.
Yeah, sure. Both of us will be looking at it. It will be both analysis and just uh, commenting on what she said directly, because the speech is more than the issue of Liberia and America relationship. I would say she did a good job by looking at the whole 9 years. So let's do her justice by looking at the speech in total. from the beginning to the end and see what she says there. So Liberians who have not read the speech or who have not listened to the speech in its entirety, but who are only listening to some bites, will begin to see and appreciate the work she put into the speech. She covered almost everything that a reimagined agenda should be.
Mhm.
But before I go ahead, I'd like to say this is the day the Lord has made. We'll rejoice and be glad in it. I'm glad we are back. We could not come last Saturday because of this technical issues, and we apologize to audience. We don't take it for granted. So we apologize for that. I know Alex will mention that too. But I want to say first before he comes out. I want to get into that. Yeah, I want to be yeah, so we apologize for not coming last Saturday because due to technical issue. But the speech I have it before me here, Alex, from page 1 to page last. That's how I called it, from page 1 to
Yes.
page last. Yeah, and it's a rich speech, Alex, and I must commend the work she brought into this. From the onset, when I started reading this speech, and this is my own opinion, my own perception, and the rest of that, based on what she said. But from the get-go, she came out swinging. I think she came out as a real radical. Okay, from the very the introduction itself, it says, when I think about Liberia's birth as a nation, I often picture fist of all shapes and sizes raised in the air. That is a radical mindset from the onset. Fist
Mhm.
raised in the air. I mean, ready for battle, ready for the defense of what they believe in, the rest of that. So when I saw that, I see that phrase. It shows the orator's mindset of radicality, not radicality in the sense of being just going on off tangent, but looking at issues as she sees them and speaking it more clearly. She spoke
Mhm.
of mind. So that's the first thing I saw in the speech, that mindset. And in fact, the next thing I saw from that presenter as a radical is the fact that she sees Liberia, the independence should not be declaration of Independence Day, but rather a day of defiance. A
Mhm.
day of defiance. So if you look at Independence Day to recategorize it as a day of defiance, it means your mind is all radicalized, maybe in the right direction, not to
Mhm.
undo things, not to destroy things, and the rest of that. Let me read it here because I want to be clear on that. When I think about Liberia's birth as a nation, I often picture fists of all shapes and sizes raised in the air. And then she said like this. I mean, maybe she showed a sign because our Declaration of Independence on July 26th was a revolutionary act of defiance. So she sees the independence as a revolutionary act of defiance. So I just want to set the record for my own perception that I see a radical mind coming into the picture. So I'm not surprised all of the things she said in the speech, Alex. The
Yes.
second thing, yeah, the second thing
And,
I
and
noticed,
just a point I want to make to that.
yeah,
So in defiance and from the context that she was speaking, I believe that yes, those who were seeking freedom, okay, those who were seeking freedom,
yeah,
they sought freedom to be independent of their slave masters. So in that case, it could be a defiance of yes, I can be independent. Yes, I
I
can
can
do
do it
things for
too.
myself. Yes,
Yeah,
I can resettle, and I have the brain, I have the capacity, and I have all of the God-given talents and gifts, and therefore, in defiance, I can stand on my own.
yeah, yeah. I can be self-governed as other people do. So I'm going to defy those who believe that the black race is so inferior and the black race cannot self-govern. So in defiance of that notion, we will declare independence to show that we can also live as a nation. So again, I'm trying to set the groundwork where I see in her mindset that radicalism, that ability and that willingness to say it as you see it, speak it as you see it, but backing it with your own empirical analysis. And then, at least I also noticed feminism in the second paragraph. It's interesting how and she continues this in all the paragraphs subsequently where we are used to norm to say boys and girls, where male and female, but she goes a different route. At least maybe you noticed that she said here inspired by the Asians, sisters and brothers. She didn't say brothers and sisters. She said inspired by the Asians, sisters and brothers who had led the first successful slave revolt in history. We dare to reclaim black personhood. So let me break this down a little bit. So right in this paragraph, I see feminism and I see human suffrage. So the feminism comes in where she's looking at women before men. And you see that all through her presentation. Yeah, women before men. So instead of saying brothers and sisters, she said sisters and brothers, which is good. That's how she sees it. And so she believes in feminism where in a constructive way, not in a negative way. And I thought to her like that. And the second part I talk about human suffrage. The fact that she even mentioned reclaim black personhood. To reclaim black personhood points to the fact that she believes in human suffrage. That right to be human, and nobody should dehumanize you because, quote unquote, you were sold as slaves and you were repatriated or resettled into another state as slave. So no, let's reclaim that personhood because we are human beings or all made in the image and likeness of God. Oh, Alex, you can always come in if you want to come in because we have
Yes, go ahead.
I like when you come in so that I can hear your perspective on that. So for me, I see feminism in the second paragraph, and I see human suffrage, which is these two things are good. Okay, so that's why I say we need to look at this speech in its totality before we start to judge it based on our own mindset. So having said that, I see the radicalism continuing in the third paragraph. The declaration of defiance. She's still holding on to that. And she said, and I saw, and I will quote, so, quote, Liberia's Independence Day should be called Indefiance Day because 177 years ago, our foremothers, you see it again? She didn't say our forefathers. She said our foremothers. Feminism again. Our foremothers and fathers defied the odds. Okay, so I'm reading through the speech and I'm seeing her ability to accentuate human suffrage and her strong desire to postulate feminism. She always say the women before the men. She's not saying the men before the women, and that's a reason for that. I believe she has a reason. She has a reason for doing that. Interestingly, Alex, she said they attempted to prove that black self-rule was not only possible but also undeniable. They embraced black internationalism long before this form of solidarity became an act of resistance. So she was saying, long before this whole act of resistance came about, people emphasizing themselves to dignify themselves, Africa started that long ago, and Liberia is in a trajectory as well. That's what I see in the speech. That's just my take. You want to ask to that?
Yes. Because it's all about African dignity, and there were other African countries also vying for freedom. They wanted freedom. They wanted to be freed from the slave masters, but Liberia came as a beacon of freedom or liberty. That's why when we talk about Liberia, or we say glorious land of liberty, freedom. And so Liberia stood as a beacon of hope for other African countries.
Certainly. I agree. I agree to that. And then she comes down in the fourth paragraph now to introduce our destiny. Our destiny. Yeah. Where are we destined for? What are we destined for? And all through our speech, dignity, destiny is all written everywhere. It may not be in clear words, but they are all implied. So in so many different ways. And in this, she said, she said at the end of this one, she said, this exceptional legacy is our destiny. And what is our legacy? The ability to be defiant to the extent where we can declare independence when no other country is doing that, even though we know we are derivatives of slaves, but we can still be self-governed. And that in itself is our destiny, who we are and where we want to go. And I'm glad, and I'm glad she mentioned that. Interestingly, Alex, the orator thinks that we are not doing enough. We are not doing enough to really educate posterity about the true impact of the occurrence of 1847. Okay, she doesn't feel we're doing enough to educate our people, our children, the young people, to always see 1847 as that the place where self-rule for Liberians started, and we should be proud of that, and move ahead with that dignity in ourselves because we have destiny. She said, I want to read it directly. I don't want to misquote her. She said, yet when we talk about ourselves today in the narratives that we pass down from one generation to another, we tend to forget about the magnitude of 1847. We forget that this glorious land of liberty was founded on abolitionist principles. We
Okay.
forget. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
abolitionist principle, which means the quest for freedom. In the United States, there was this whole political upheaval about free slaves and also uh, proclaiming freedom for the slaves. There was that debate, but she saw the need that in of course our country Liberia was founded on that principle of abolition. There should be no need to subjugate another human being in a way that is so
Yeah.
demeaning. And
Yes.
so there must be the recognition of the dignity in every person. And so
Exactly.
Liberia as a country was foundationally declared as a country or state with its own sovereign rights based on the abolitionist principle:
Yeah.
freedom, liberty,
Exactly.
pursuit of
Exactly.
happiness, pursuit of life.
Exactly. And as she said, we should not forget that dignity once defined us. And I love that dignity once
Yes,
defined us. It was because of dignity, that human dignity that we have for ourselves. That's why we were defiant. I'm trying to keep a frame of mind now. That is why we were
yes,
defiant to declare independence, because we know that we are dignified people. And it's good that she mentioned that. And another thing,
yes.
Ellie, yeah. So you
And
go
that
go
and
ahead.
that dignity, that dignity, which is the theme of her entire speech. If you follow where she mentions dignity, you will see that she's talking about the quality of being worthy of honor
As a
or
human.
respect.
Yeah,
That's a definition of dignity:
true.
to have that quality of respect for yourself and for other people, to also perceive you as a full human being made in the image of God, that you
Wonderful.
have a purpose on earth to fulfill like everyone else. Therefore, you should have the freedom to innovate or to create your own environment, and also work collaboratively with other people as a community, and and see how all of you can govern in a way that will be peaceful and stable. So dignity
Wonderful.
is what
Wonderful.
she's elevating in this speech, and that's what a lot of people miss that, because if dignity can define us,
Take your
in
time,
other
brother. Take
words,
your time.
yes, in other words, if dignity can define me as a Liberian, it means I must have a sense of purpose. I must have a sense of hope. And I must live with the virtues that we always preach, which is love your neighbor as yourself, or as you love yourself, and also kindness, compassion, reconciliation, and living in peace and stability.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And that brings me into her next point. What she said, she really urging Liberians, all of us, in observance of the quote unquote in defiance day. I'm saying quote unquote because that is her word. Those are her words she coined. She's challenging Liberians. She calling Liberians, as we observe this in defiance day, to build back better than what we have now,
Yes,
and what we had before. For me, that is a clarion call. You don't want to keep building on the same thing and making the same mistakes in the errors. She said, build back better and build back differently, not the same way. I mean, you can't keep making the same errors all the time, and then you say, okay, we'll try the next time, and then you come back and you do the same thing, you know. And she believes, Alex, she believes that our methods of achieving self-respect and self-worth have not always been compatible.
Yes.
Yes, yes, and this is serious. And let me go back on that again. Our methods of achieving self-respect and self-worth have not always been compatible, fair, or just. Yet, we cannot build a new Liberia for all Liberians, which is the theme for this conference, until we all possess the basic level of well-being. You just mentioned that basic level of well-being. Don't leave anybody back. We all should do it together, hand in hand, or mind to mind, like minds to like minds, and that's what she's talking about. And dignity defines us. She said that all through the
That's it.
speech.
That's a motif. We are
Yes,
saying the
yes,
motif in our speech.
in our
Yeah,
speech. Yes.
dignity defines us, and
Dignity.
dignity defines every one of us. And if she is giving a speech about how we can be united as people and reconcile our differences, yes, let us do so in a spirit of dignity, the spirit of honor and respect for one
Yes,
another. That's
yes.
what she's saying over there.
Yes, 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 and she insists on that dignity defines, and she look at this in three, according to the tripartite steps of looking at that, or the three-legged step of looking at that. And she said, "Let me turn this phone. I'm sorry. Let me turn this phone. Yeah." And she said this should be our creed. Dignity define us. Should be our creed, our mission, our vision, our roadmap, our North Star, our prayer. And I like the prayer part. I was looking for that I'm looking for the theological part. It's there. Dignity defines us should be our creed, our mission, our vision, our roadmap, our North Star, our prayers, our central unifying core. You just mentioned that again, Alice, and our ideal as a people. So she's
Yes,
calling us to action. She's calling us to see ourselves as those dignified people. Don't allow and that speech. I hope we can cover that before we end. She's calling us clearly to see who we are. We shouldn't allow anyone to dehumanize us in ways that have been done in the past. She was very
yes.
fluent on that, and I'm glad she mentioned that. Dignity defines us, and she proposes three ways according to the tripartite steps.
Trapata, yep.
Yeah,
Three trapata. Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. So she has first, we must reconceptualize and redefine Liberian citizenship. That's the first step.
Yep. The
The second,
citizenship.
yes. The second thing is we must
Mhm.
tackle the twin development challenges of structural violence and what you call on freedoms. On freedoms.
On freedoms.
On
Yes.
freedoms. Wonderful. And then the third way of dealing with this issue is we must prioritize nation building as much as prioritize state building. So
State building.
she trying to
Yeah, we'll come to
diagonalize.
that. But let's
Yeah,
look at the three areas that she mentioned there, which is like a triangle.
yeah,
She says citizenship. We'll
yeah,
redefine citizenship. And she wrote a
mhm,
whole book about it,
yes,
and some people they try to analyze her speech. They haven't read her book. It is so pitiful that some, even our friends in the media, they came down hard criticizing without looking at the whole speech, or maybe they read a speech and they glossed over some of the many ideas or themes in her speech. Here, she's talking about how can we redefine our citizenship?
hmm,
How? And she gives example of passive citizenship. Your bloodline. How can you trace your bloodline? If you say you're Liberian, can you speak a dialect? Or even if you can't speak a dialect, do you know your parents? Do you know what county they were born in? Or how can you identify your citizenship? All of these things that we have to look at, we have to look at them
yeah.
to
Citizenship by
see.
association. Yeah,
But yes.
yeah,
And she look at citizenship in the active. The active citizenship role is we must all participate, be participant, both not just in the government, in the community, in the church. We all should be active. We should obey our laws. See, she mentions about the rule of law. Are you obedient citizen of the law? And are you contributing in any way that will help our social fabric to be intact. So she had a bunch of questions that she asked for people to ruminate in their minds about these things.
Exactly, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. That's a very very serious point you just made. Just the what you just stated, and she tries to look at each of these tripartite steps in specific ways. We might not cover everything, but we just look at the main,
Yes,
yeah, the main issues there. So in conceptualizing and redefining Liberian citizenship, she said something interesting. She argues that from our founding as a nation, I'm reading directly from the speech right now, from
mhm,
our founding as a nation to the indigenous wars of resistance, to the political rumblings of the 1970s, to the vile assassinations of the 80s and the 1980 and 1990 of two heads of state, which culminated into warfare. Liberian identities, practices, and interpersonal relationships have completely changed. And that's true.
yes. And
That's
that's true. The history, the trajectory of our history changed. Those important or major events that occur. But let us not, before we get to that, let us also look at where she defines structural violence.
yeah.
Now, she's not merely looking at physical violence.
Hmm.
Structural violence means if you are an official working with the state, do you create an opportunity or atmosphere to be fair to everybody to take advantage of the resources that the nation has? Do you when it comes to employment and any other opportunity, but there are officials or those who work in government who strangulate the system or policy to their own advantage. You see, that's structural violence. If you deny someone's right to resources because you are at a hem of power, then in other words, you are projecting structural violence. So she look at the structure of our democracy, the ingredients of our democracy, when we look at government as a whole, our politics, and how the masses benefit in a way that will be fair and it can see that indeed justice is of essence in everyone's life, including
That's true.
the echelon of power. And
Yeah.
so that structure of violence, I love that part because at times we overlook that and we tend to point finger only at the politicians and the government. Of course, corruption ruin our structure of government and even ruin us. So then she asked the question that when it comes to corruption, it's not only just the politicians who have positions, but what about us in the marketplace? If I am increasing my price just because I want more profit or more money, then that's what that is unfair, right? That is corruption. If can I trust you enough for us to hold um, our agreement or contract together? You do your part, I do my part. But in Liberia today, we have the deficits of trust, the deficits of integrity, the deficit of integrity in our country. Many of our brothers and sisters who travel in and out, they will tell you, I don't trust anybody because people lie. Even if you tell a young man, go and buy me a gallon of gas or maybe 2 or 3 gallons of gas, they will go and buy half of it and cheat anyway and take some of the money and then bring half gallon and put in the generator. That's corruption. So corruption goes to our interpersonal interactions with each other. And she wants that to be changed
And
because in a
then,
way, yes,
yeah,
in a way, it is injustice.
exactly. And then she says the only way to do that is to reimagine Liberia. She said, understanding why this change occurred and how we cope with it now is the beginning of reimagining Liberia anew. So it does not happen in a vacuum. It happens with specificity. We gotta be pungent. We gotta be focused. We gotta be intentional. So the intentionality is what she's really calling for on the first one of the structure that she talked about, and then she comes down and then reminds us again, dignity must define us again.
Yes.
I'll keep bringing that in, and then she comes to tackling structural. You already went into that. She comes to tackling structural violence and on freedoms. On
Mhm.
freedoms. What does she describe as on freedom? From what I see in her speech, I would say her definition of on freedoms is that which involve institutions and structures that feel inequality and injustice. That's what on freedom is. So any institution that feel inequality and injustice is described or categorized as on freedom. So then she said, for critical development scholars like she is, the main goal of development is to enhance well-being and
Mhm.
reduce deprivation. That's what development is. If you're not enhancing people and you're not taking them from the deprivation, then that is not development. It's the
Yes.
same old what comes around goes around. And then she said, yet structural violence and unfreedom inhabit, oh man, inhabit individuals from meeting their basic needs. And you ready lay that out here. And I just want to take it from the author's own mouth. Uh,
Exactly.
exactly. So they inhibit individuals from meeting their basic needs or actualizing their fullest capabilities. Okay,
Yes.
I hope people already read this speech before all this criticism and putting it down before even internalizing what is that. And then she continues, she said, though less visible than physical violence, she stayed on structural violence. Though less visible than physical violence, structural violence is systemic. Alice, thank you for saying that.
It is
It's systemic.
systemic.
Yeah,
Injustice is systemic in our country.
exactly.
The
It is
governing the
systemic.
governing structure of our country. Yes.
Yeah, it is systemic, enduring, and ultimately more dangerous.
It
Nobody can
is.
agree with
It
that.
is dangerous. It is dangerous. We will not be physically fighting, okay? But we may be doing structural violence or violence to other people when we lie, when we steal from them, and when we deprive that full giving, God given potential to thrive in a society with equal opportunity. That's what she's getting at.
That's what she's
And I
getting.
know she went on later on that if we want to see the dignity to define us, to see dignity to define our worth, our qualities as human being, okay, the minimum wage. The
We'll
government
come
should
to that.
also
We'll
look
come
at.
to that. We'll come to that.
Okay, you
Don't
come
jump
to
ahead.
that. Okay, you come to that. Okay, yes. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes,
You jumping way ahead, man, because from 143 to
you're right.
250.
You're right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and everything she's talking about, yeah, it hinges on integrity, truth,
exactly.
honesty. Go ahead.
Exactly. This speech is something that everybody should read it and internalize it. Don't just criticize before reading the orator's speech. And then she continued by saying, and just I had to read this because so that we can hear it ourselves.
Yes.
She said, indeed, the true test of any nation is its willingness to transform the structural conditions that render so many of its citizens hopeless and helpless. This is, I mean, the more a little gloomy, but that is the reality. If you don't
Yeah.
give the people hope, Ellis, you give them hopelessness, and hopelessness leads to corruption because people get so down, thrown into the extent where they say, okay, this is I resign to this condition, so I will continue living that way. It's interesting that she mentioned that. And not only that, Alex, the orator emphasizes that a reimagined Liberia intentionally seeks to reduce the unfreedom of poverty and the inequality of structural violence.
Yes.
The inequity of structural violence,
Yes.
because the contrast between our haves, and this is a serious issue happening in our society today.
Hmm.
Because the contrast between our haves and have nots is entirely too stark. You can see it.
Yes,
It's not
it is
hidden.
apparent.
It's apparent. It's clear. So then she
Visible to
says, for
see.
example, over 50% of Liberians live in multi-dimensional poverty. Wow, multi-dimensional. I mean, all categories of poverty.
Yes,
Over 50% of Liberians live in multi-dimensional poverty. This is unacceptable, she says, and needed for a country that can boast of 177 years as a sovereign nation. This is clear. You're going to have more than 50% of the people, at least, in multi-dimensional poverty, and while few people are enjoying the resources of the nation.
yes,
It's a serious thing to really talk about. And then she says, we have the resources. True.
we
Both
do.
human and this is my best part of this speech. We have the resources, both human and financial, to achieve our development dividends. Alice, what do you say about that?
Yes, we do have the resources. President Joseph M. Boakai said when he won the election, he said Liberia is a country with abundance of resources, but the resources have been mismanaged. They know that. We all know that. You work as a journalist, and I work as a journalist back in Liberia years ago, and we know that corruption is a big problem. And I'm glad that she gives the difference between state building and nation building.
Yeah, we'll come to
And
that.
I know as we go ahead later, we'll come to it, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
she talks about mostly we are all focusing on state building, want the political structure to be okay and transparent and accountable, but then we neglecting nation building, which is very paramount to a vibrant nation. So she is looking at the blind spot of every one of us. Nation building encompasses a whole lot that we'll be looking at, but let us take a break. We'll be right back. And today we are talking about elevating the Liberian spirit of dignity. And our special analysis is on Dr. Robtel Neajai Pailey, a Liberian scholar who was the orator of on July 26, 2024, Independence Day. And we are looking at her entire speech and we are dissecting it, analyzing it so that you can better understand what that speech was all about. And looking at dignity, defining you as a Liberian, it means that your quality or your worth as a human being must define your purpose, your destiny, and your collaboration in reconciling with your neighbor after tumultuous years of instability, and see a way forward for peace and stability. And so, as we take a look more into this speech, we got some other areas of the speech we'll be looking at, and you can comment, okay? Share, comment, and also follow us. And we'll be right back. Don't go away. Make sure that you comment and also share our link here with your family, your friends, and your relatives. We'll be right back. Please don't go away. I'm Pastor Red, and Pastor Deddeh and I will be here to look more into Dr. Pailey's speech. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Indeed, you are watching the Gracious Hope Live podcast, and today we are talking about elevating the Liberian spirit of dignity. In other words, our worth as a people, an individual, and how best we can interact with each other in love, integrity, as well as honesty, so that we can build our country, reconstruct our country. But we must understand our blind spots, things that we tend to overlook, is what we are looking at in this speech. A very, very powerful speech by Dr. Pailey on July 26th. When she delivered this speech, there was a controversy all around. People only pick up the part where she said that uh, America has taken more from us than we do, and the ambassador walked out with her delegation, and so people took notice, and then they jumped on that particular line that she said. But look at the whole speech; she was speaking in the context, and that is so debatable. If we're talking about whether foreign powers have taken away from us more than we deserve, of course we do understand that some of our politicians are corrupt. Of course, they mismanage our resources and even um, international funds. We understand that, but the crux of it is that, of course, uh, if I were to look at some of the documents from way back between the United States and Liberia and our friendship all along, we shouldn't be paying for a visa to come to America, because of that special relationship of friendship and how we migrated, or most of our immigrants, or most of the immigrants who migrated on Liberian soil, some of them came from the United States, even though from Caribbean and other countries as well. And so the orator emphasizes the strength of our diversity, and it is where we need to see as a people and allow our dignity to define us. And talking about dignity is about our qualities. What make you a Liberian, or how can we all muster our effort in order to be a strong nation? It's not just the structure of government alone, but our interaction with each other. How do we treat each other fairly? Are we having do we have the sense of justice, or to treat other people fair, and how our resources are distributed? And so then we are talking about, now we'll be getting to the difference between state building, which of course has been the focus all along. And she said, that should not be it. The emphasis should also be on nation building, reconciliation, and how we can have a structured government that will serve the people in humility and true love. And so before we continue here with Reverend Deddeh, I just want to also say that indeed I'm really, really in support of cultivating our national pride. If you are proud of something, you will always want to stand for it. And so this is a book that I wrote. It was released in March of this year. It's called Cultivating Liberia's National Pride. You can find it on Amazon.com and also Barnes and Noble online, bn.com. And this book is a practical guidance on how we as a people can be proud of our country and some of the blind spots that we tend to overlook. I brought everything up in this book when it comes to reconciliation and how we can look at our history and diversity as strength so that we can prosper as a people. So you can get a copy as well. And what is it that we all been searching? We want freedom. We are a glorious land of liberty. And this is the first book that I wrote. It's called Liberia's Search for Freedom, Uniting a Nation by Faith. And so if we understand our virtues of or qualities of our dignity as a people, professing that we are we love God with all our heart, our mind, and our soul and our strength, and profess to believe in Christ or believe in the Bible predominantly as a people. And this is not to overlook other faith groups or communities, but majority of us who occupy the echelon of power in our country, we see that in speech. The presidents, always from past and present, they all profess to know Christ, to love Christ, and to be a Christian. And if so, why not translate our qualities or principles or values into a public service? And this is a question I believe that we all should be posing to one another in our interactions. And so Liberia Search for Freedom is also available at Amazon.com and BN.com, Barnes and Noble. It is available for you to learn more about Liberia and see some of these strategies of how we can restructure our government and also build our nation through interaction with each other, cultivating Liberian national pride and Liberia Search for Freedom. Now, Reverend Deddeh, going back to the speech, I know we are at a part of Dr. Pailey's speech, which, of course, she is differentiating what it means to um, do state building or engage in state building and also nation building. So
Yeah.
let's
So we don't forget, audience, we are still on the second rung of a tripartite approach to reimagining Liberia. We are on tackling structural violence and on freedom. That's what we are. So I don't want you to forget, because it's very important that we keep track of where we are. She emphasized something here in the speech also, and that is reimagine Liberia intentionally seeks to undo freedom. We already mentioned that. And then we come down, she said, a reimagined Liberia rejects, anti-intellectualism, develops critical thinking skills, and invests in lifelong learning from cradle to grave. Some of us are lazy learners. We don't want to want to go forward in our learning. So as a result, we have that same myopic idea all the time, and we are stagnant in our education. And because of that, we criticize everything that comes our way because we don't understand. The lack of comprehension will lead to that. And she also said here, she said, I must also insist, I'm quoting it directly now, I must also insist that we lift our attention, we shift our attention away from the extractive industries. We're coming down to the whole thing about nation building and state building. We must also insist that we must shift our attention away from the extractive industries, which make us vulnerable to the vagaries of global capitalism, and focus
yeah.
instead. Eh?
Yeah, I like that part. The vagaries of
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead, go
yeah.
ahead.
And focus instead on developing our creative industries.
Yes,
I remember when we were growing up, we had most around a group of companies. They were like, and they were producing all sort of things, household things, pianos and something, and the rest of that. But we don't have that anymore. And I think that's what she's talking about. And then she also said, she really tackled almost every structure that should be discussed in the Liberian nation state and state building and the rest of that. She said, in a quote, the unregulated accumulation of vast wealth amidst accumulative want in this country is not only obscene and callous, but also structurally violent. The accumulation,
structurally violent.
you see that some people getting government on their bum, they are rich. They get from nowhere, no background, no background of business or anything. As soon as they're getting government, wealth comes. And I think that's what she's talking about. I'm not putting words in her mouth, but I think that's
Yes,
what she's talking about. And she said, because I'm jumping now to the next one. No, then she said, lawmakers, I want to quote this, Alex. Lawmakers, I urge you to revise our decent work bill.
yes,
Change the monthly minimum wage from, that's what you're talking about, and I see you're jumping ahead of me here. Change the minimum wage from 143 US dollars to at least 250 US dollars, and revise Liberia's so-called harmonization policy, because our country, and this is key, Ellis, I'm quoting this, because our country that pays its wages, its average workers low average, no, let me read that again. Country that pays its average workers below average salaries is setting itself up for failure.
that's true. Because you got to feed your family, and our world is changing. the inflation internationally can affect even countries like Liberia, and therefore you cannot be working, be making maybe 100 or $150 a month. And so she proposes that at least the civil servants should get $250 a month.
At least, yes.
Looking at the dynamics of global economy,
Economy,
and
exactly.
yes,
And should I
but
even stop you now,
again,
Ellis? Yeah, go ahead, but go ahead, but go
again,
ahead.
earlier she was talking about we should not make ourselves vulnerable to all of the wolves out there in the
The
international
global
community, the
capitalism.
investors out there. It will make ourselves like, well, we will make ourselves vulnerable. They can come in like sharks and use our talents for their own self-aggrandizement. Therefore, we need to create space and room to promote our own energy, or what I say, potential within every individual. That is human capacity building now. That's what she's getting out.
Wonderful. Well, so
We
we
need
come
to
in.
build our own people. They can be. We got a lot of Liberians who are creative.
Yes, yes, yes.
Creative
Let me see how far we got
innovation
to go.
can can increase if we focus on human capacity building, and that is what she's emphasizing.
We still have a lot to cover, Ellis.
Yes,
Let's
let's
go
go
with
ahead, and then we got a
the
video clip from her too. So
yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead, go
yeah.
ahead,
At the end, we'll bring our
because
video clip
we.
into that to
Uh-huh.
bring the whole thing home and the rest of that. And then I like what she said here. She's not only looking at one aspect, Alex. She's looking at the whole, like I said, the whole on
Mhm.
9 years, the bigger picture. She said we must also reform our pensions and social security system, leading to a complete overhaul of NASCO, the National Social Security
Yes.
Corporation, yeah, the rest of that. This way, the agency can serve all workers, including those in the informal sector who represent the backbone of our economy. People don't really pay attention to the informal sector. The particular, those who are way down there sitting on water side, they are producing the merchandise we need, and we all look those people. But she's saying we should pay attention to them. The orator Ellis decries indecent work ethics, which is a serious problem in Liberia. Indecent work ethics. Let me see what she means by that. She asked the question. She said, "How many of us actually
Mhm.
value hard work?" That's a question she asked, and then she continues. Some of us want jobs, but refuse to put in the time and the effort required to secure and maintain a career. When given the opportunity, I'm quoting directly, when given the opportunity, we shake our responsibilities and demand compensation for doing very little.
Yes.
Not only that, we must change our ethic around work and propel our labor market into the next generation,
Yes.
next century, which is key. And
Yes.
you want to comment before I continue?
Yes, yes. So it goes back to work ethic. Do you go to work on time? And she stressed that a whole lot. She emphasized that a whole lot. Respecting time. Do you go to work and actually turn your cell phone off and do the work? In America, when we go to work, you have to turn our cell phone on and focus on your work. The 8 hours, except
You mean
when
you
you
mean
have
turn
to
the
take
cell
your
phone
break.
off? You mean
Yeah,
turn the
you
cell
turn
phone off?
the cell phone off. That's what I meant. You turn the cell phone off and focus on what you are paid for. The
Exactly.
question is, do you, as a Liberian, in knowing your worth or your dignity or your quality that you bring to the job to enhance that business so that it can prosper for everyone to be happy? Do you go to work on time? And if you go to work on time, do you actually spend your time working so that the dignity of your labor can produce can produce a viable outcome for that particular business or for that particular government sector that you're working for?
Exactly,
Go
exactly.
ahead.
And we'll soon be coming down to the third rung of her approach to reimagining Liberia. But let me just bring up this one or two things here because, like I said, uh, the orator tried her best to cover what she sees as the way to reimagine Liberia. Okay, she at this point she's stressing the reinforcement of the Liberianization policy, the reinforcement of the Liberianization policy by protecting Liberian businesses
Mm-hmm.
from monopoly of foreign cartel. She called it foreign, quote unquote, foreign cartel.
Yeah.
That's a word. That's not my word. Yeah. Okay. For example, because we import more than 80% of our food, including the staple rice, preference for government contracts should be given to Liberian agri businesses operating at a scale. I mean, if the Liberian business is up to scale, hire them to import rice and not foreigners. Okay, prioritize Liberians first, which is key. This will promote food security in keeping with the Liberians Feed Yourself program. There's a program name like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then she's balanced the whole thing. She said, however, protectionist policies should never give us license.
Mm-hmm.
Protectionist policies should never give us license to lower our standards and accept
Mediocre.
mediocrity. Yes, which
Yes.
is
Yes.
serious. Not because
Yes.
we want to promote Liberian
Mediocrity.
businesses, we accept anything that does not or look like a scale business or a dignified business because you want to promote Liberianization and then just give it. Let's go ahead. Maybe you want to say
And I
something.
want to speak to that. The
Yeah,
liberalization policy.
yeah.
It means that Liberians should have opportunity in our own country. They should have access to loans or grants to open their own business and run it. If you go to Ghana, I know some of you during the war, you relocated or resettled in Ghana. And then I haven't been to Ghana, but I heard a whole lot about Ghana, how the people believe in nationalism. They believe that a Ghanaian must be the head or manager of any foreign investor. They must be the head or have that capacity to be in the echelon of power for that particular foreign investors or investment. And she is saying that hey, Liberians should be first. We should buttress that effort in every way for all Liberians to have the opportunity to to run business and not allow foreigners, those who are not Liberians, to come in and take over. In other words, we should not be to the point where because we are desperate for foreign investment, so we should lower our standards and allow them to take a lot from our country and we get less. That is where she was setting up the context of our special relationship with the US. Of course, it is debatable. I mean, the US has done a lot in Liberia, has taken a lot from Liberians or in Liberia, both in human capacity and also resources and also intelligence and a whole lot that we can list here. We have special friends. It's good that they are generous in every way. However, this is a time, according to her, we must wake up and re-examine ourselves, looking at our dignity counts. Who are we as Liberians? If we are to build a vibrant country, if we are to build a country that will be for all, we must never lower our standards because we want to look out there. So, in other words, she is talking about self-independence here. She said it from the beginning of her speech about glorious land of liberty, this freedom that we want in defiance of the slave owners and slave masters. We wanted to what? Have a country free where we can make our own sovereign decisions as a nation. So self-independence is emphasized here. Reverend Deddeh, yeah, make a few more points here because I have a tape here to play for her.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So
Well, let's do the privatizing nation building. Let's come to that so that we break it down a little bit, and then we
yes,
yes. Let's see what she says about that. So that's the tail wrong of her speech. As Liberia should be reimagined. She said for the last decades. I want to read this because I want to put a point clear that she states it here. For the last 2 decades, Liberia has focused almost exclusively on state building at the expense of nation building.
yes,
Yeah. Yet, one cannot succeed without the other. That means they are intertwined, they depend on
yeah,
each other.
intertwine.
And then she
Yes.
and then she goes ahead to break it down to define what these two terms mean, these double words mean. She says, where our state building
Mhm.
concerns, I could summarize it, but I want to read it
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
whoever is
Go ahead. Go ahead. You
yeah,
can summarize it too. That's not
yeah,
bad. Go ahead.
yeah. Where our state building concerns strengthening government institutions such as the policies, laws, codes, and legislature. Nation building is about improving the relationship that govern our lives. So state building is
Exactly.
about infrastructure, and nation building is about people. And she moved ahead to say, why
People
nation
centric.
building? Yeah, yeah. While nation building is people centric and internally driven, requiring national agency, ownership, and resources. State building is institution centric and often externally supported with international resources. In other words, when it comes to the state building, it has to do with pouring external resources for the international. But when it comes to
It-
nation building, it is internal. We own it. We run it. We direct it and be the direct benefactors of that, which is serious. And then she says here again, where our state building focuses on building physical infrastructure, roads, beaches, and ports, etc. Nation building focuses on building human infrastructure, that is the psychosocial. That is an era now. You're the
yeah.
mental health people. That is the psychosocial, emotional, mental, and communal well-being of citizens. So nation building is as important as state building. That's what she really trying to say here. So coming now, Alice, then I go because I gotta
Yes.
go to
So state building is about, we all talk about corruption, corruption, corruption. We all talk about effective, efficient government. It is about state building. We've been focusing on that a lot, according to her. We've been focusing on it, and then we go out to beg the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the United States, the European countries to help us strengthen our government, our democracy, election. That has been most of our focus. Well, what about nation building? Nation building after years of tumultuous time in our nation's history. Nation building is important or equally important as state building. We want a functional government and we want transparency. We want for the laws or policies to be implemented in every way. But at the same time, we cannot do that at the expense of nation building. We cannot neglect nation building, which is people, the people, because democracy is about what? It's for the people, by the people, and the people elect whoever occupies the echelon of power, our structure of government. And therefore, if we talking about nation building, we're talking about how we can strengthen our relationships, and that is very vital to nation building, to state building, because all through the war, people die, and some of the estimation will be about what, 300,000 people, 250,000 people die through gun violence, physical violence. And since then, our country is traumatized. And in that traumatization, we as a people need to reconcile. And I mentioned that a whole lot in my book. Reconcile. But how can we reconcile? To reconcile has to do with building relationships. And how do we build our relationship is what we are now focusing on. We introduced the TRC, which is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but those politicians, or may I say pundits, or those who come from the international community, neglect the fact that nation building through the TRC, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, importantly, it is important because it brings people together. Okay. But those politicians lack the political will to implement the results of the TRC report or recommendations. And so We have a country where people's hearts are bleeding. They want justice. They cry out for justice. We learn about the auditors who were murdered within a week's time. All those people died and nothing came out of it. We want to know why politically motivated murders take place. And you cannot have state building. You want to strengthen the government, but the government is overlooking nation building, insecurity in the country, and people are afraid to go out at night. So when people do not have genuine or authentic relationship or love for one another, how do you expect for patriotism or nationalism to flourish? How do you expect when you have structural violence, according to her, which is ingrained within the government or the state power, undermining others' potential to grow and have the resources that is for all, and also create an environment that would be feasible or vibrant for everyone? If we have a government and people who are undermining that process, which according to Dr. Robtel Pailey is structural violence, how do you expect to flourish as a nation? How do you expect to value your own dignity as a human being or as a Liberian? And this is where she emphasized a whole lot. So we need people centric, which is people centered, building relationships, strengthening our creativity and innovation and human capacity as a whole. If at the same time we want to have an efficient and transparent government, so you
So
can do one
so
without the other.
let's bring them home now because we know
Yes, bring it home.
yeah.
Bring it home, please.
So finally, she comes to international relations, and this is where the speech not
Yes,
yet. Yeah. So
let's get to that. But she's
like
built a context though, and people
well, she built
overlook
a
that we're talking about
she built a
state building and
context.
nation building.
She
How
built
we
a
need to be
context.
self-independent. How we need not to lower our standards when
Yeah.
investors come in. Liberalization policy should be implemented to the fullest. So she's setting out the context before she came to that. Go ahead.
So on
Go
the
ahead.
international affairs front, she didn't just go to the issue of our relationship with America. She
Yes.
on the international affairs front, she emphasized that we must not allow foreign financiers
Here you go.
to hijack our development process. To hijack no foreign, we should not allow foreign financiers to hijack our development projects. We cannot, according to her, we cannot and will not build a new Liberia for all Liberians if we blindly pander to the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and their proxies in the United Nations. You know, and she comes down to say, so a reimagined Liberia reduces poverty and inequality. She comes back to that theme again, reducing poverty. You know, she dealt with corruption as well. Yeah, we may not hear everything, but then on an issue now that has brought the whole hula baloo, but her response, she said, finally, I remain very concerned. This is how she started out. Finally, I remain very concerned about the outsized influence of the United States in our transitional justice process. She's concerned about the oversized influence. And, and she said we must forge new strategic partnerships based on mutual benefit and disabuse ourselves of the notion that we have a special relationship with America. And she says, the truth be told, according to her, this so-called special relationship only exists in our imaginations. That's how she sees it, that's how she feels it, that is her perspective, and she has the right to hold a view on her scholarly work. Okay, lest we forget, she says, lest we forget, the United States was one of the last countries to recognize our independence. Lest we forget, the United States has taken more from us. This is where the whole thing came from, Alex. Lest we forget, the United States are taking more from us than it has given.
Yes.
Unquote. Lest we forget, again, I'm going to another quote. Lest we forget, the United States will always serve its own interests above all else. Once we accept these truths, according to her, we will appreciate that. Reimagine Liberia can only be no, can never be anyone's stepchild. The reimagining Liberia,
Exactly.
yeah, can never be
So,
anyone's stepchild. Yeah,
uh,
so I will stop there for now.
okay. So her concern here is that, as she lay out the basis, like we're saying about our international relationship, we should not only allow investors to come in, but when they come in, we should do so on our own terms. That is based on our own cultural dynamics, social dynamic, political dynamics, and society dynamics. We should be able to be in charge of our resources. We should not lower the standard, and we should never make ourselves vulnerable to our international partners or friends. But we should invest more in human capacity, creativity, innovation, and we'll have Liberians who can do that. But we need to invest in human capacity. So then, internationally, if we look at the special relationship with the United States, of course, it is a historical fact that the United States recognized Liberia as an independent country of late. There were other countries that did recognize Liberia, but the United States was late in doing that. Reason for that, I don't know. And I mentioned it in one of my books, Liberia Search for Freedom. You can get a copy of that. That's a reality. And two, she wants us to re-examine our relationship, special relationship, according to her, with the United States, of course. And our re-examination has to do with looking at the world now, the world we live in, the world of capitalism, and the world of capitalism and socialism and whatever some other countries have devised globally. We see a shift, a systemic shift in global economy. And therefore, as a country, Liberia, we must also be able to seek other opportunities with other countries. And it is true, and that is a fact, that America's interest supersedes everyone's interest in everything that they do. You know, Donald Trump is what? With his MAGA movement, he is saying what? Make America great again, America first. So that is nationalism. So she's saying that America was not throw her interest away for you, Liberia and Liberians. No, that interest will come first. And it is also debatable when it comes to whether America has taken a lot than we should expect. Yeah, when people hear America gave a whole lot of loans, or when I say not loan, but grants and other resources, we agree that they have done a lot for Liberia. And we can also blame our leadership, political leadership, who also implement structural violence, according to her, that is lack of transparency, lack of accountability, lack of policy implementation to benefit everybody. Therefore, we have to look at that, and that is a reality, she's saying. We
Before,
understand that, but at the same time,
let me answer you quickly before we close, since you talk about that, because it's important that
okay,
we must emphasize that she also look at the National Anti-Corruption Code. Okay, she
yes,
welcomes its existence, and she said we must also remove in corruption inducing expenditure from our budget, such as inflated salaries for elected and appointed officers. So she also dealing with corruption. She also mentioned the Truth and Reconciliation Commission you talked about earlier. About its report, she said, Reimagine Liberia is not only free from colonial relationships of power, it is also free from colonial artifacts that cripples us. In this vein, I would like to renew a previous call to adopt national symbols that represent the cultural breadth and historical depth. So you're talking about national symbols, the flag,
national identity. That's
yeah,
what
the
she's looking at,
locomotive
national
colors, yeah,
identity.
and the rest of that. And then she continued by saying, "Why is the national motto on
Yes.
our seal not the love for liberty united? I mean, united us here, as suggested by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because the TRC suggested that the motto
Yeah, they got to change that motto.
and
Yes.
this and that. Because
From
then she,
love of liberty brought us here to the
yeah,
love of liberty unite us here.
yeah. Then she mentioned Liberia's highest order, which is described as the most venerable order of the Knights of the Pioneers. She's wondering whether we realize that that word pioneer reminds us of political, in fact, it's politically charged. That's what was. Let me not put in a word that she said. The word pioneers remains politically charged. Some people don't want to hear the word pioneers in that highest honor that we have in Liberia. She
Mhm.
talked about the flag, the national anthem. So she's even talking about the language. We can't go into all of that now, but we just want to present to you that she covered everything, almost everything that has to do with reimagining or refixing or revisiting or redoing Liberia. So we thought to make sure we emphasize those things. She also mentioned the international community in her speech that we should not be beholden to them as well. So Alex, let me just say this one, and then I'll leave it to you. It will be you now. You can close that. So in our effort to achieve state building, we must build a national consensus around how we perceive and perform public service. At least you mentioned that over and over again. Why some people, and this is key, I want to raise that and then so people to see what she's talking about. Why some people enter government to engage in post-war profiteering. Others are committed to public sector productivity.
Mhm.
Why some remain political entrepreneurs, others become transformative policy makers. I mean, she read doing the dichotomy in the distinction between those who want to line their pockets with wealth and those who really want to be committed to the nation. But then she says this duality exists in government across the globe. So she not only looking at the Liberian government per se because it's all over the world. And then she said we have to do a better job of not only scouting for competence, but also gauging who will put public interest before personal gain, Alex. Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot Dr. Pillay covered in this speech, and the context that she set up to with that for that particular line about how America has taken a lot and we should re-examine our special relationship. I mean, of course, if we want to overhaul our country to be a country that will befit the global economy in every way, yes, she didn't say we should sever our relationship with the United States or any other international country. She didn't say that. She's just saying our special relationship is only in our imagination because our officials, one, they are corrupt, they're receiving the national aid and they mismanage it. Two, America has taken a lot from Liberia than Liberia itself. Of course, if we look at other books from other scholars that have been writing, we'll see the whole lot. Dr. Dunn, Dr. Carl, Patrick Burroughs. I mean, I read all that books, and I have references from that books in my new book that I released. They talk about special relationship with the United States from back way back in the 1800s all the way, or even before then. And so that's our history, that's our country, and we must now wake up to reimagine Liberia in a way that we all need to be honest with ourselves if we want for others to respect us. And also, we must work and see our liberty, our labor in every sector of society, whether you work in the church or in civil society, or you work in organizations or you work with the government. What dignity you bring to work? And she covered all of that, building human capacity. That's very important. Building human relationships. That's important. Reimagining our national motto, the love of liberty brought us here. No, of course, the love of freedom brought people here. But at the same time, we should now turn inwardly so that we can redefine ourselves, our dignity as human beings, to be self-reliance in every way when it comes to projecting our power or sovereignty to the world. And that is what she's getting at. We have the resources, we have the capacity, but we should not rebuild a country in a way to only look at the an accountable government, a transparent government, an efficient government, an effective government. But we should also look at the people, the condition, and how an enabling environment can be created in order to have that creativity or the innovation in every way to prosper in building a vibrant country. And so that is where we'll leave you for now. I know there are some comments here by some
Yeah, I'm putting
viewers.
it up now. Pro River says the first one he said it's interesting. He's saying reimagining Liberia does maybe what do you want to say does not mean he said does
Yeah, that's
mean
it, man. Does that mean?
yeah, does not mean you should blame others. I don't see blame game here, but you should blame others for all your
Yeah.
deficiencies. It means recalibrating. Of course, that's what she's saying. Recalibrate and stop doing the same thing. Okay, I mean, you agree with her. That's what she's saying. Recalibrate, yeah, and do things differently. That's what she better say. I don't know who is
But
River Pro. I hope we can know his
he
full
always
name.
commenting.
Yeah,
Yes, he's
he's a
always.
good commenter. I like that. Yeah, he contributes. And then this one says, I think it's in River says, "Pro, that statement that America has taken a lot from us is also an imagination." They don't see it that way. Okay, that's his
Well, I
view.
mean, you don't see it that way, but why don't you read books on Liberia, Liberian
No, he said,
scholars, those who've
no,
been
Ernest,
writing?
he said they don't see it that way. They mean America does not see it that way. So he's saying America does not see it as way. Again, that's his view.
Of course, America will not see it that way because the interest supersedes everybody else's interest.
Then let me see what he says here. Thanks, man, River Pro for contributing. Whereas, where has this lady been since 1847? The Lebanese business people, but they must say what you recalibrate. That's what she's saying. So you
Where
just went,
Lebanese people have control everything in this
yes.
country. Of
That's what
course,
she's saying. So she's
because the
like that.
liberalization policy is not implemented. That's why we need an overhaul of state building in collaboration or
Yeah.
in sync with nation building.
River
That's what we
Pro,
need there.
River says pro, but that's what she's saying. She decrying this thing. She mentioned that, and I'm glad you're raising this issue. That's what she was just saying. These things are happening in the past. We should stop. We should reimagine ourselves. That's what she's saying. River says pro. But thanks for your comment. Let me see. This one says. Let me see if I can put it one up. It says we are no longer geopolitically and strategically relevant to the United States. We are more of a liability than wow. This
And
mindset
then
is
an
so
access
clear.
to them. World
Yeah,
War II is over. Of course, we all need our international partner. Don't get me wrong. But Dr. Pailey is saying, in as much as we need to collaborate globally as democratic forces, we must also develop our own capacity in our own sphere of our own human capacity and how we can strengthen our own relationships, especially after all of those tumultuous years of chaos. We should now recalibrate our way of thinking and say we want to depend on foreign power in order to survive when we have other resources. And
but
that's what
I
she's
think
looking at.
I think River says Pro is making a point here. World War II is over. That's true because during World War II we had the CIA station, the Omega, I mean the VOA tower was there, and the rest of that. But after everything, they removed it. So maybe that's why he's referring to that significance that we had during World War II is diminished. Maybe that's why he's saying is diminished. Maybe that's why he's saying. So I see where he's coming from. Stephen Tokba said, "I'm following you from where? From
From
Liberia."
Liberia. But
Yes,
anyway, let's get to this tip, the quick clip here with Dr. Robtel here in her interview. So
yes,
let's get to this clip right away here, where she had
wonderful.
this interview with Vani Kamara of ELBC. And in this clip, she said a whole lot. Let me remove the not the banner, but that the comments over there.
Oh
Can
yeah,
you remove it from the screen? So
yeah.
there you go. Okay, so let us listen to Dr. Pailey here, what she has to say in this interview. That was after her Independence Day speech.
And I also think of myself as somebody who takes received wisdoms and completely interrogates them, flips them upside down, and enables us to think about things in a new and different way. So it's my academic work, which is foundational to who I am. It's also my activist work, which is foundational to who I am. But that speech was meticulously researched. So
Yeah, but you came with an intention, and that intention was to inspire and incite.
absolutely.
Did you achieve that?
I think I did. I mean, based on the very few comments that I've been able to read, and even the amount of calls and messages that I've received from Liberian people across the globe, not just in the country, but in the diaspora, I believe that I did stir a conversation. And that's what national orations are supposed to do. That's what national orators are supposed to do. They're supposed to be provocateurs, right?
So you owe no apologies.
I have no apologies, no qualms. I apologize to no one for what I said. I stand by my statements. I stand by every word. I stand by every sentence, every paragraph, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm a scholar par excellence of Liberia. I'm also a Liberian scholar who has such a deep love for this country. And when you love something, you reserve the right to critique it because you want it to be better. And that's precisely what I did on the 26th.
Are you an American citizen?
I'm not an American citizen. I lived in the States for a number of years as an undocumented migrant. I finally got permanent residency and I was eligible to apply for US citizenship, and I was not interested in that because I am a Liberian through and through, and I will be a Liberian until the day that I die, and only a Liberian.
Do you want to be one still?
I just mentioned to you, I will be a Liberian until the day I die, and I will only be a Liberian.
All right. So that is Dr. Robtel Neajai Pailey, emphasizing her identity as a Liberian, always be a Liberian. She stands by all she said. And our review of her speech, lay things out for you to understand. And some of you commented, and we'd like to thank you so much for joining us. But we'll be back here next Saturday. We are here every Saturday on the Gracious Hope Live podcast. Reverend Deddeh is the co-host. And thank you so much, Reverend Deddeh, for looking at her speech, Dr. Pailey's speech. And hopefully our listeners will share this video so that others can learn more about the entire speech, not just one place where the controversy people are trying to steer. But she really, really sparked a debate about how we can reimagine our country and rebuild our country in a meaningful way for each and every one of us. Until then, this is how we leave.
Before we go, let's thank our contributor, because River Says Pro always coming on.
Yeah, we did. We already did. Nothing new there. Yeah, we already did. All of the comments that he brought about, and that's yeah, we did already.
Alexander Miller from India. Oh wow, watching
Indiana.
Oh, okay. But I see. Oh yeah, Indiana.
Yeah.
I thought it was India. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So
yeah, all we have here mostly we already did. He's following for Indiana. That's what he meant to say. The state of Indiana, United States.
Even to buy. Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure we thank them for that. Okay, Alex. Good job. Good job.
All right. So thank you, and please share this video. And people who really want to understand and know more about Liberia, its history, and some of the things that this brilliant orator, Dr. Robtel Neajai Pailey brought up. I believe that we all should be talking about that instead of focusing on one part where the American delegation left, because they didn't want to hear her saying that, yes, we should reimagine or re-examine or reevaluate our special relationship, because the world is changing around us, and we should be self-reliant, and we should never lower ourselves in a way where they will take more away than we deserve. And that is how we leave you today. God bless you, and may you have a great weekend. Bye for now.